Haunting revenge. Terry stumbled into his living room after working another long shift. He wasn't part of a grueling repetition on an assembly line, nor was he constantly answering to a bunch of assholes through a small rectangular window. He was an insurance agent, working behind a desk in a nice air-conditioned building where the local radio station religiously played classic rock from 8 o'clock a.m. to 10 o'clock p.m. He always had some radio hits cycling through his head. Terry headed toward the bathroom and splashed cold water onto his face. When he looked into the mirror, staring at the streaks of water now running down his face, he thought he saw the smiling face of Ben Clarkson. The smile seemed sadistic. He could make out the thin face with pointy chin, hollowed eye sockets, and sunken cheekbones. Terry blinked and splashed some more water onto his face, and Ben's face disappeared. Ben had been an acquaintance of his since he had started working at Global Relief Agency. Terry wouldn't necessarily call them the best of friends. What kind of friend would provoke the other friend to present a knife to their abdomen? After the bathroom, Terry went to the kitchen and pulled out his favorite late-night remedy, a bottle of Jack Daniels. It was a repeated habit, especially since the whole incident occurred 6 months ago. It was so repeated that his peers had suggested he had to go to a few meetings. Terry was far from calling himself an alcoholic. It aided him in drowning out horrid memories. If turning into an alcoholic was what it took to live a peaceful life again, then pop the top again. It was well past midnight when he awoke from his slumber. He was still in his recliner, the television playing the late-night news. The room was spinning, and he felt like he needed to get off the merry-go-round, or else he might spew chunks all over the other kids. He staggered to his bedroom, undressed himself from his dress shirt and suede pants, and tucked himself into bed without brushing his teeth. He would wake up in 6 hours anyway. His teeth could wait until then. The nightmares began the moment he drifted back to sleep. He had been at the bar, Patty's Lounge, having what he had had that night, an overcooked burger, fries, and a glass of brandy. He hadn't been hurting a soul. Ben had come up to him first. He was shit-faced, holding true to a reputation of 10 years. Ben had claimed that there were some rumors going around of Terry making advances toward his sister, who was a fitness trainer at their local YMCA. Politely, Terry told him that he was out of his mind. Yes, it had been true that he had recently divorced his wife, and he was known to flirt around town with various women, some of whom were a good 10 years younger or better. He had only been to the YMCA once since the ugly divorce, and Ben's sister hadn't even worked that day. Ben wasn't hearing him. According to Terry, Ben wasn't hearing anything but his own delusional thought processes, powered by the influential juice that caused the gears to slow and jam on occasion. He started calling Terry every name in the book. At first, Terry remained calm, finishing his food and downing his liquor. Even the bartender was telling Ben that his time was up. Ben followed Terry outside and wouldn't let him get into his vehicle. This was where the nightmare got ugly. Ben threw the first punch. Terry wrestled him to the ground and managed to pin him. But Ben broke out a knife from God knows where and started swiping at him, managing to cut a thin sliver in Terry's left leg right under the kneecap. Even in the nightmare, Terry could feel the anger rush to his face. He pressed his foot on top of Ben's wrist, causing him to loosen the grip on the knife. The vision of the knife entering Ben's abdomen always played back in Terry's mind. It was the most frequent of the memories, seeing the pain on Ben's face and hearing his agonizing cries. It always stopped him dead in his tracks. The bartender had called the cops when they had first started fighting, and by the time Terry had stuck the knife into Ben, the flashing red and blue could be seen running up the street. Of course, Terry was thrown in jail, and it was in jail where the news was broken to him that Ben had died in the hospital. The trial was a long period, about 6 months. All that time he was pacing the cell floor. Fortunately, he had a respected lawyer who had drained the self-defense law dry, making Terry dodge the 40 years in jail bullet. He couldn't thank his lawyer enough. It had been almost a month now since he was found not guilty, and Ben's family was still banging on his door, hoping to get a chance for a retrial. The time on the clock when Terry awoke read 4 a.m. It was a Saturday, and he was off. He laid back on his pillow, but his eyes were still open wide. In the darkness, he thought he could make out Ben's smiling face again, stretching out from the plaster of his ceiling. He blinked, and the face disappeared. I'm losing my mind, he thought. The phone rang, startling him. He stumbled out of bed and went downstairs to answer it. Nobody he could think of would be calling him at that hour. Hello? There was no answer. He answered back, but the other end was dead. He slammed the receiver back down onto the dock. He turned around and his heart nearly burst out of his chest. Sitting in his recliner was the figure of Ben. He was smiling that same sadistic smile. Hello, Terry, the figure said. It's been a while. The body of Ben stood up and started in his direction. Even though it made walking motions, it also appeared to be floating. Terry was frozen in place. His mind was telling him to move, but his body wouldn't obey. In less than 5 seconds, they were nose to nose. When I died, the body of Ben started, I was stuck. Something was keeping me from crossing over. For a long time, I tried to figure out what I needed to do. The smile returned to his face. Then I realized what it was. In order for me to cross over, I need to kill you. No. It was all Terry could utter, and it came out soft and weak. Before he knew it, Ben's hand held a knife. It was the same knife Ben had pulled on him that fateful night, the one Terry used to commit his murder. See you on the other side. The pain came quicker than Terry ever thought. It was a burning pain that started in his abdomen and expanded toward his chest, his arms, and eventually his legs. He collapsed onto the floor, and the ghost of Ben faded away. Haunting Revenge was written by Matthew Meyer and presented in Beyond the Levee and Other Ghostly Tales.